Alrighty, peoples, we're back for more critical thinking. So now we're getting into part 7 or chapter 7 of the critical thinking, human misjudgments. So sometimes the best way to fight or eliminate something is to understand that it does exist. Kind of hard to throw a punch if you don't know it exists. So cognitive bias sometimes fly under the radar, which is why they can cause so many problems, okay? These cognitive biases are also known as Charlie Munger's cognitive biases, and it's well known throughout the world. They are known in the psychological world as human misjudgments. The following provides you with a summary of each of these biases, a few examples throughout, and a few tools to help you overcome these cognitive biases in your own life. This will allow you to think more critically and more efficiently. So the first one would be the Lollapalooza tendencies. Okay, this type of bias generally comes about when people are in a group. It's because it's natural for humans to initiate those around them. In other words, it helps them fit in. People want to approach that, and just because they want to be a part of the group for whatever reason, they'll accept some of these things. Lollapalooza states that the inherent tendencies and biases ingrained in the human system can sway our decision-making processes. When multiple biases are in action at the same time, the Lollapalooza effect is created. So this is easier to understand when you put it into a real-life setting. So, Charlie Munger referred to bidding wars at an auction as a creation of the Lollapalooza effect. Well, a group of people begin bidding each other upon an to outbid, try to do. A group of people, right? They try to outbid each other on an item. They may even actually want it really badly, but we see a few biases come together and act all at the same time, which causes very poor decision making. But the auctioneers love it, right? Twaddle tendency. It occurs when you spend too much time doing unimportant things. Basically, you're wasting time. You're doing TikTok. You're doing cell phone stuff. You're doing Facebook stuff, right? Twaddle tendency also occurs when you spend time talking about nothing or small talk, or when you fill your research papers with useless fluff just to add to the page count. To think critically, the faster you can get to the root of the problem, the sooner you'll be able to solve that problem, right? So now we have inconsistency avoidance tendency. Sometimes change is scary. The unknown is the unknown, and a lot of people are scared of that, going off into the unknown, as this leads to someone favoring familiarity over the unknown. So I'm going to stay with my familiar pain rather than taking the chance that going into the unknown may cause me some sort of pleasure, some sort of success, and definitely change. The brain also naturally favors familiarity because it tries to conserve as much programming space as possible. It's also a chemical reaction that we are addicted to. I'm okay with this pain. It's familiar to me. Even though it is pain, it's familiar to me. So this functions as a form of Darwinism and allowed people to make decisions quickly when they were traveling in groups during the hunter-gatherer times. However, as frightening as it can be, change is fantastically good. Embrace the change, especially when you're trying to eliminate the inconsistency avoidance biases in your everyday life. We don't need to travel in groups anymore, and our thought processing is much more complex. Treat it that way by expressing opinions and exploring as many options as possible. So we have this also, next one would be a liking or a loving tendency. This has a large presence in the lives of celebrities, and the way that we treat our family members. To you, this may be known as favoritism. To Charles Munger, this was the liking, loving tendency. Have you ever defended a sibling in an argument, even if she was in the wrong, because you feel that blood is thicker than water? If so, then you have succumbed to your brain's natural tendency to favor those you have feelings of love and adoration and admiration for. So it can also be a girl or a crush or something of that nature. So loyalty can be a bad trait when you're trying to do critical thinking. This is intermixed with emotion, and we've stated before that you should remove emotions from the situation as much as possible to think clearly. This stands true when combating the liking and loving tendency. And if you do love that person, if you do like that person, can they stand up for themselves? Why do you need to jump in there and defend them? That's the other question. Are they strong enough to stand on their own? Because you could be showing that you don't believe that they're strong enough to handle the situation themselves. So you have to go in and save the day like some superhero. Maybe that's okay for your relationship. Maybe not. Another would be doubt avoidance tendency. Let's say your mom always told you that bananas were bad for you as a child. However, when you begin to get frequent muscle cramps, and your doctor says bananas are a good source of potassium and will reduce that cramping, the doubt avoidance tendency will prompt you to disregard and even totally ignore this information because it goes against what you think you have always known since you were a child. By ignoring this information, what you've always believed to have been right, because there is no evidence against it. And we don't need evidence as a child, do we? Because mom is everything. Now we also have reward and punishment bias. This is important to understand. People will respond better to an offering of an incentive than to a threat of punishment. By looking forward to a reward, people will perform more enthusiastically, and this increases the quality of work. It's the competition theory. And this increases the quality of work also. Competition is healthy, right? That's what they say. Threatening to punish people can do two different things. First, they will become more timid, and their work will not be great because they fear that they're going to make a mistake, or they'll become full of disdain since they feel threatened. If you're going to keep threatening me, why am I working here? Right? This will also lessen the quality of the work. So this may not be a bias that you can avoid, but it's something you should be aware of when you are assigning projects at work or maybe creating a practice schedule for a sports team. Both of these will require critical thinking and predictions about how people are going to react to a certain situation. So now we move on to a hating or a dislike bias. How good are you at holding grudges? If you answered really good, you probably frequently succumb to this bias. Similar to the liking and loving bias, this hating and dislike bias will lead you to disregard the thoughts of people that you don't favor. If you don't like the source of the information, you're likely to ignore the information even if it supports your viewpoint. Holding a grudge will increase this tendency. So you're going to have to let it go. Not for their benefit, but for yours. Because you are feeling a grudge towards this other person, or you hate this other person. That's your feeling that you're imparting on that other individual. It has nothing to do with them. It's your feeling. It's internal to you. You're holding a grudge and hating based on a memory you have of the person, not of the person itself in the now. Let it go. Forgive for your health, not for theirs. And they probably don't even care, right? Don't waste your energy on memories, past fights, conflicts. He took your parking spot, she took the last donut, whatever it may be. Let the past stay there and comprehend how someone being on your side is beneficial, even if this person can shed light on a situation or answer some important questions. So if this person is the person you hate and you know they're good at what they do, why not get support from that individual? Some people say be the bigger man or be the bigger person, right? Yeah, they're an asshole. Yeah, you hate them. But if you can come together and be a part of your team and have a team effort to accomplish a goal, that's a step closer to mending that relationship. Now, the Kantian fairness tendency. Life is not always going to be fair. Why would it be? If it was fair, everybody be a winner or get a third place trophy or a 20th place trophy and a ribbon. Now, the sooner you can accept this, the better off you'll be. If it was fair, it would not be challenging, would it? Some people are good at things, you're good at other things. You just have to identify those in most cases. The Kantian fairness tendency deals directly with the man's inability to accept that the world works in mysterious ways and is unfair sometimes, and usually focuses their life on those sometimes, not the times where they actually found the parking spot that they wanted, or, oh, look, I found a $20 bill on the ground, right? They always focus on the unfair and how life is doing things to them rather than for them. Now, if the universe is giving you challenges, and they say that God does not give you anything that you cannot handle, then the universe and God know that you're more of a badass than you think you are. It states that a little unfairness toward an individual should be understood so long as it benefits the group or it results in a fairness for the majority in the long run. This also goes against the individualism that many Americans believe in. Oh, it's all about me. Why does this always happen to me? Because it's for the greater good of the people as a whole, not necessarily the entire population of the world or the United States. I'm talking about your community or who this thing is affecting. Right? Because second place in any race is the first loser. But it's still second place. It just depends on how you perceive that. I was off a little bit today, and that other person that was first place and won the race just a little bit better or felt a little bit better or did something better than what I did. Seeing as we are not in the hunter-gatherer stage of our ancestry anymore, we can focus more on ourselves. This is why we have such a hard time accepting unfairness towards an individual. Now, when we're referring to an individual sacrifice to benefit the group, you may not go toward the big picture thinking, right? The way a soldier at war is treated may not be fair. However, in the long run, his efforts will benefit or even save lives of the others. Or you can look at it from a much less imperative standpoint, offering someone your store card at the grocery store so they can get the discounts that would fit because you hope that they would do the same if you were in the same position. So now we go over to the envy and jealous tendency. Munger's definition and example of this is primal. It's not an apparent in the first world countries as it is in other places. The envy and jealousy tendency is as simple as wanting what someone else has. Think of when you're a child in a room full of toys, but the only toy you were interested in playing with was the one that your brother or sister or somebody else was playing with at the time. Isn't that funny how that works, huh? That would be the envy and jealousy tendency in action. Like many of these biases, the first step to combating this bias is to recognize its involvement in your life. So now we go to the influence of influence from a mere association tendency. So this bias is the reason we see celebrities in advertisements. The celebrities have a large impact on the lives of many, many people, as you see like Rihanna on a shirt or Don Kalam, on the shirt. Chances are, if you're a fan, you'll want that shirt too. Even if Rihanna did not take part in the creation of the shirt at all and she doesn't get any money from it, she still has a part in selling the shirt because the people want to be like her. A lot of times we take cues from the people that we admire. So this is the same reason why some of the different dieting programs take off, even if they are not that great or don't even freaking work. Suzanne Summers, right? I'm not saying that her stuff doesn't work. I'm just saying one of her exercise programs or weight loss programs. Excessive self-regard tendency. So as mankind, we all tend to believe we are above average. This bias is the root of overconfidence. And if you're familiar with Ronda Rousey's loss to Holly Holmes in the UFC match a few years ago, you'll see where overconfidence can be very dangerous. Being aware of this bias is important because it can help keep your ego in check. Being egotistical can cause your judgment to be clouded, which makes thinking critically a lot more difficult than it has to be. This will also lead you to make poor decisions because you believe you have the ability to do more than you actually can. This is one of the reasons why it's important to have groups so that people can take up for your lack, right? You may still have a big ego, but at least the project can get completed on time. So let's say that you're in college. You played a bit of Division I baseball. So after 20 years, your 10-year-old son and his friends are over and want to play a bit of backyard baseball. So you decide to join in. You're thinking about how good at baseball you were back in the day, and then decide things can't have changed that much, except that you now work at an office from 9 to 5 on weekdays, and you have yet to get that damn gym membership that you've been talking about for the past 10 years. And, you're a little bit overweight, and then you do okay. So the following day, you can't understand why you can barely move and your ankles are swollen. And this would be the excessive self-regard tendency at work. Over-optimism tendency. Though many people like things from an idealistic standpoint, real life does not always work out the way that we expect it to. This is where being overly optimistic can get you into a lot of trouble. It can also lead you to believe that a bad thing that happened to someone else will never possibly even think about it happening to you. For example, many of us take texting and driving far too lightly, despite the large number of people that die in car accidents caused by cell phone usage each year. This is because even though we hear about these accidents, we would not believe that it could happen to us until it actually happens to us or closer to home. Right? Therefore, we refuse to take the correct precautions when including putting away our phones or putting them on some sort of airplane mode or driving mode so that we can focus on driving our 3-ton missile down the road. Also, deprival super reaction tendency. It's been said that humans react more to loss than to gain, and would rather have no gain than any type of loss. This comes to the forefront of our minds when we're facing impending losses. This is why gambling can be an issue. When you lose money while gambling, you're tempted to continue gambling just so you can make back what you lost. The loss can create anxiety and stress, which can overtake a person's mind and consume their thoughts. So now we move on to the curiosity tendency, where people are just naturally curious. However, it's those who push their curiosity to another level who are most successful. This is a human trait that many people do not exploit. And according to Munger, you should push your boundaries and find out everything you can about everything. Ask questions, do things, figure it out for yourself. It doesn't matter if Harvard said this. It doesn't matter if the guy down the street did that. Do it for yourself. Maybe you should ask them, well, why did it not work for you? And then try something different. Maybe it'll work for you. And then now you can go back to them and say, you know what? It would have worked if you would have done this. So you should do it again. Even though this has never been mentioned specifically in this piece until now, it's obvious how important the curiosity tendency is when thinking critically. We've talked about how you should know everything you can about a situation to make accurate evaluations. If you do not regularly exploit the curiosity tendency, you will find yourself unable to reach the highest level of critical thinking. You won't even consider it. So, these are the tendencies, well, most of the tendencies you need to be aware of in order to think critically. You have to keep all of these in mind, exploit some, and identify others and set them aside. Okay? Now, we're going to move on to Chapter 8 for self-learning.